What's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. I hope you guys have been having a great week. I most certainly have. I have been crazy busy doing a bunch of interviews for next month's Sober February, which is coming up shortly. All of the interviews that I have conducted are absolutely amazing. Some of my guests are musicians that are sober, that have recently become sober, that have been sober for a very long time, and their experiences with that. I also have spoken to some non-alcoholic breweries up here from Montreal. But not only that, I actually conducted an interview with someone who has a PhD in nutritional science, and we go into exactly what happens when you drink and what happens when you drink too much. I am super stoked about Sober February, which is coming up. On today's episode, I'm super stoked to be with another metal brewer. But before I introduce him, I must apologize because we had a slight audio glitch during the middle of this episode, and we didn't quite hear exactly what beer we were sharing. I tried to fix it while editing the episode, but it didn't quite work out, so I'm going to do that right now. Throughout this episode, we are drinking Saint-Houblon's Série Houblonné. It is a West Coast IPA. It was ultra crushable. It's hopped with Columbus, Centennial, Citra Simcoe Hops, and it was fruity, slightly bitter, and just madly crushable, clocked in with a 6.4 ABV. So get ready, people. This is Vox and Hops episode number 223 with Shawn-Kevin Laplante from Saint-Houblon.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I am with Shawn-Kevin Laplante of Saint-Houblon. I am super stoked to be with you today. I have been a fan of your brewery since I just casually stumbled upon it. It's really one of those things that happened. I was getting into craft beer and I was just walking around. I think it was the first one that I went to was in NDG or in Côte des Neiges. Is the first one that I stumbled across. My wife was being followed at a birthing house in Maison Naissance in the area, and I had a bit of time before we went to an appointment, and I stumbled in there. And I enjoyed the brews. I liked the whole concept of it, and I was immediately hooked. And then I just realized that you guys had more of them, and I've done a bunch of interviews at the one downtown. Notably with Yuri Raymond very early on in the podcast. We had an excellent chat there drinking your New England IPA. I remember that very well. And it came in a pitcher. We were so happy. And let's start with an easy question, something that I like to throw at people. It's easy yet complex. How have you been coping with 2020?
Not so bad, actually. I've had a few things to keep me busy, which I think is really important for this weird 2020. But yeah, actually, I kind of like it. I don't mind it. I stay at home, play a few video games, do side stuff a bit, and actually, I like it.
That's amazing. Me too. I am an introvert as much as I have to be an extrovert when it comes to performing and being on stage and, doing everything that comes with being a touring musician. But at the core of myself, I'm very happy just staying home.
Yeah.
And luckily, there's a bunch of amazing brews that have been coming out this year, notably a bunch of your brews that I'd like to talk about. Something that I think is interesting, how has it been for the brewery? I know that Saint-Houblon is one of the only places that has 3 locations throughout Montreal. So that must have been a headache and a nightmare once the lockdown started happening. Can you talk to me a bit about that?
Yeah, actually, it went with a phase 1, phase 2 kind of thing, where on and off switch, where restaurants reopened. So our production really changed. It was really more on the keg side, kind of toned it down a bit with the cans to get a bit more kegs for the restaurants. But then kind of bite us back for a second wave where we had to re-switch again for canning production to go a bit more towards those. So yeah, it was a bit of a headache to manage all of those changes, because most of the time we learned the news the same week as.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So beer takes more than a week to do all the process. It's just it was a headache a bit, but still like we actually enjoy it. We can still like all work at the brewery, which is like great actually, that to be able to produce like all 100% for cans. Actually, I really like producing for cans. Like I like it.
That's interesting. See, that's something I don't know about. What is the major difference between producing for a keg versus producing for a can?
Well, it's just like the keg we actually like take from the tank to put it in the keg. Well, like for the can, like it's actually like we've got a canning machine that just goes in and like it's just like the final step is different. But
Mm-hmm.
I actually like to see cans actually when we're done. Like you see your pallet full of cans, and it's actually like a bit nicer than seeing a pallet of kegs, in my opinion.
It has like an artwork to it. It's the brand, and your brand is very beautiful and very strong. How about on the creative side when you are going for cans versus for kegs? Do you guys do more experimental brews when you are kegging it because you don't need that brand?
Yeah, actually, like we like to do like funkier stuff for kegs. It's actually easier. That's one of the big advantage of being with Saint-Houblon is actually like we can test our beers at the restaurants first, and then the ones that we see that we've got really nice feedbacks, we can actually like put it on like for cans. Actually, West Coast IPA is the one that like it was tested in restaurants and people really liked it. That's why like we knew that right when it was into cans, like we already have feedbacks about it, which kind of helps.
Yeah, that's super cool. Super cool. And I was very, very stoked when you opened that new one on Saint Laurent Street. It's in a crazy, hectic craft beer area though. But me being an uber craft beer dork, and before the pandemic, I like to do these pub crawls. So I have this perfect one planned when I'm allowed to do it, where I start at Ciel, hit Ciboire, make my way up to you guys' area, and do vice versa, Saint-Houblon, Bira, and then wrap up a Harry Can. That's just a monstrous pub
That's
crawl.
hell of a ride. Yeah, it's a nice one.
And when you guys did open up again, right, my summer vacation started on the exact day that the tap room was open again, and I was there that very first day
Nice.
at the Saint Laurent Saint-Houblon, and I had a good time. It was really nice, and you guys had this terrace that you guys had built, and my kids were just like running on it. It was a fun day. It was hot. It was very hot, but it was very fun. Speaking of that, West Coast IPA, VOX&HOPS is all about hanging out with my metal friends and metal brewer friends and talking about their lives, music, and craft beer. Talk to me about this beer that we're going to share today.
Actually, this beer, well, should we open it?
Yeah.
Let's go for it. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. It's so good.
Yeah, I love it. It's an IPA. We've done a double dry hop to it. Actually has a Columbus, Centennial, Citra, and Simcoe. So we really went for a really hoppy one, like to get a bit on the fruity side a bit. Yeah, I really, really like it.
It's very cool. It's got like that nice little hoppy bite, that beautiful West Coast tang. I love it. I love it. What would have been your very first beer? Do you remember your first beer, Shawn-Kevin?
To brew or to drink?
To drink, the first beer.
Well, to drink was my father's old beer, like Budweiser, laying around to the sun. Yeah, that wasn't like the worst, and I didn't touch it again for a while. It was like my father actually laughed at it when he saw me like trying and like take that sip. Because the fond bouteille, where it's like you don't want to drink that, like I'm still like disgusted by it. But then I come from Joliette, so L'Interlude, now known as L'Albion, was one of the spots where I actually went and got my first beers. I wasn't like a big fan at first, which is but I actually started by liking stouts. I really liked those thick beers. I didn't like the other lighter things at first. So yeah,
that's awesome.
and I really liked coffee, so it kind of got into my jam.
Very cool, very cool. I want to hear your whole brewer story. How exactly did you end up brewing amazing beers?
We started, I worked at VOX&HOPS, which is, I think, one of the best schools to actually learn the ropes for it. I started manager there for almost 2 years, and I decided to switch. One of my friends was brewing there, Graham, which is like an absolute like beast. Like he's an actually really really good brewer, and we hang out and have some D&D nights, enjoy some like craft beers, and I was like, geez, like I'd like to start brewing. Like if only like I had like a few like classes or something. It's like, dude, like just try it with VOX&HOPS. Like ask to be switched to become a brewer, and like you'll see like if it works, like you'll actually like I think you'll enjoy it. And I actually like followed what he told me, and I loved it. Like I actually really really love my job as a brewer. Is really fun, and I switched to get more creative content at the Saint-Houblon. So I switched, and now like it's actually really fun because at the restaurants we have 24 rotating lines, which is like you brew whatever you want and you
Wow.
try whatever like what's on your mind, and that's actually really fun to not have those like limits.
That's true. That's true. And Talabarasar was very cool. I definitely enjoyed going there at first, but it's true that they are sort of limited with the styles that they can put out there because people, they have so many, I want to say succursales, they have so many establishments, and the beers sort of have to be the same, except every establishment is allowed to have like their one special brew at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still doing that. But with
Probably.
But with Saint-Houblon, you can do whatever you want. What
Yeah.
what would have been that first brew that you did do on your own that you were excited about and it was a success?
Would be I'd say it was at Saint-Houblon. Well, I had a good one where I created one for the old port at Trois Brasseurs, which I did a white IPA. I really really enjoyed it. But I'd say like at Trois Brasseurs when we started to do it started like a series called Houblon 1 and so forth, like 2, 3, 4, where we only like had fun with IPAs and like throw whatever hops we kind of wanted and like thought it'd go well together. And like we actually had a few of those that like I really really loved, and we're looking forward to get those into cans. And yeah, like it's actually really fun to, you know, you're just like messing around, like playing with the hops, and like, oh, like I think like we should like tone it down like for that part and like go more on the dry hop. We actually really liked it, and yeah, it's like the first Houblon was one of my favorites to start off.
Very cool. What would have been one of these, because you have no limitations at Saint-Houblon now with 24 taps in 3 establishments? What would have been the most out there crazy brew that you have done?
I'd say one of the craziest one was sour cherry stout we've done for I think it was 2 years ago for St. Valentine's Day. We're looking forward to have it like as a small batch for this year's St. Valentine's Day. But yeah, it was actually really really good. I really liked it, but I know it wasn't like everyone's cup of tea since like sour stouts isn't like the most popular kind of thing. But yeah.
That's crazy. Where did that inspiration come from? Where did you come up with that idea?
It was like talking and drinking, and it just came out. Like like sours, you like stouts. Like let's do it together.
Like all great ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Around the beer.
Something else that is very cool that sort of must be very helpful for you guys during COVID is the fact that you guys can deliver beer because you guys have a great food menu.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of with the archaic Quebec beer laws and liquor laws, it is crippling to a lot of craft beer establishments. But Saint-Houblon, since the beginning, was automatically like, we can deliver you beer, but you got to buy food to go with it.
Yeah, but I think it's a good combo. Like the food's like exquisite. I think in the restaurants, like it's like yeah, I work for them. Like I like the food, but it's actually really really good, and like it's fun to actually like I even order for myself, like, and I also deliver like get my beer delivered, but still like I think it's a perfect duo where you're getting like beer shipped to your door. I don't think anyone can actually like, how can I say it, turn around to this. Like it's
No,
beer
you
your
definitely
door.
can't
Like, you don't
complain.
even need to work to walk to the depth. You're right there.
And it's good beer and it is good food. And the food comes because Saint-Houblon also has a farm.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, let's talk about the farm.
Okay.
That-
Yeah, so we've got a farm in Papineauville. So most of the things we actually cook in the restaurants comes from the restaurants. So like we're really trying to be autosuffisant, like to all work like together. So like our beers, like mostly like we're also proning Quebec products. So most of the time the brewery is located at Terrebonne, and we've got Houblon Bastien like 5 minutes away. So, like freshest hops ever. Like I text the guy, he comes in with his van, like drops me fresh bags, and like we brew with those like the same day. Like I think it like plays a big role to it. We really want to encourage local, so.
That's interesting. How different is it when you say that he comes with the fresh bag? Because every time that I've gone to see a brewery or helped out a brew, I always end up seeing these pellets, these, and they're frozen. So when they come with fresh hops, is it just really the flowers that Bastien brings to you, or is it reduced down to the pellets as well?
The pellets.
Okay.
So
okay.
yeah, it's always we work mostly with pellets. We sometimes go with the flowers, but it's like more on the pellet side. Yeah.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Let's talk about hype and lactose, because having tried a bunch of your brews, I know that you guys favor the lactose. You guys like lactose. What talk to me about lactose and the use of lactose in Saint-Houblon beers and why there is so much.
We actually like it. It gives it like a bit of a thicker body, which is like what we wanted for especially our NIPAs. So they kind of all had it. Same with the milkshake IPA. We actually like cranked it to 11 for that one, like on the lactose side, just to have like that really thick body. But usually it's for this, and I have that sugar. For the NIPAs are like really fruity based. We've got Club Tropicana and Mango Suave, which are like really two good beers that have like strong fruity taste to it. I think the lactose, yeah. I think the lactose really helps to give it like a nice balance between hoppy, sugary, and fruity.
Very, very cool. I am a vegan, but I drink all craft beers because I can't have a craft beer podcast and not drink them all. But I always know when there's lactose in it because the next day I suffered just a little bit. So I'm not a real vegan. It's something that. So I'm always a bit wary when I approach a lactose brew, but I have enjoyed yours, that's for sure. Where do you guys position yourselves on hype? Is it something that Saint-Houblon is interested in? All of these, I don't want to name names, but we all know which breweries I'm talking about. When the lineups around the block and people are pre-ordering and it's selling out, is that something that Saint-Houblon is chasing, something that you guys wish would happen, or do you guys just want to make brews for yourselves?
I'd say a bit of both. Where we're actually like we worked on the both IPAs. Like we started canning like really not too long ago. I think we started in March, so it's actually really fresh. It's not been even a year yet, and it was hard to like live up to the hype where like we did the brews that we already had planned. Like back in the days, were more on the NIPA side, and we went towards the IPA, but we really wanted to have like great IPAs to like you don't want to you want to get known by your IPAs in a certain way. I know the hype's not necessarily like all around that, but still we wanted to get some really good IPAs to get on it, so we really may put some focus on it. But then like we need to catch the hype train and like get on it, but we actually also want to do our own brews where like the sour stout isn't like the hype train we talk about, but we still want to do it. It's like that's the liberty we've got. It's actually wanting to do what we want. So
yeah, you guys are absolutely right. You guys started canning right when the pandemic hit.
Yeah,
that must have been getting a canning machine into the brewery at that timing is a miracle, because I'm sure every brewery out there wanted to get a canning machine at that exact moment.
well,
so you guys were lucky.
We actually started with we rented one. We had services coming by to can, But when we actually like got the canning machine, like it's a game changer. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because I've heard that it's a great business model. Whoever invented this, I bring a canning machine into your brewery business, genius.
mm,
But for the brewers, sometimes the beer could use another few days in that fermenter before going into a can. So you guys are a bit more stuck that you can't wait until the next time the guy comes over, or
exactly.
so it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But you need to get it in the can so you can sell it.
Mhm.
So it must have been really cool to finally have your canning machine and you can can it whenever the beer is absolutely at its best.
Mhm.
Yeah, very interesting.
Difference, yeah.
It must have also been very stressful choosing which beers to launch with because you guys do have a proven brand with the 3 establishments and those have been open for many years and you've been making great brews. But when you finally get yourself onto a shelf at a craft beer store, there's a massive amount of competition. So talk me through how you did choose those initial few brews.
We went with the most popular to start off with like the most popular beers we had at the restaurants, which is like I mentioned earlier. It's fun because we've got like a database there where like we actually know like people's feedback. Yeah, on tap is actually good to get some ratings, but having like even more from the restaurants, I think it really helps. And like the IPA we worked on, like we didn't have much feedback on it, the IPDDH, so it was really based on our taste. So like the stress level was a bit higher. Where like, are we actually like on the right path for it? We wanted like a classic IPA, like more on the côté résineux, like
The sucker, right?
yeah, exactly.
It's really cool, and it's only 5.1%. That when I saw that one initially came out, I was very surprised by that because
Yeah.
nobody is making IPAs hitting it at a 5.1 ABV.
I actually love it. It's my second baby. Like that's my
Very
I
cool.
yeah.
I have my favorite brews that you guys make, and I don't understand why you guys don't get more hype about it. Are your sours? You guys make some of the best sour brews in Quebec
Thanks.
right now, and let's talk about those. How do you guys
Yeah.
approach making a sour? There's
Uh,
always an interesting fruit adjunct. I love it.
yeah, actually, like we went full on sour for the summer. Where I know like most retailers, like I went to like some of my local retailers and like I talked to them and they're like, oh, like you're mostly like sours, and that's why like we kind of want to push that back a bit and like go into like a more versatile thing. But
Mhm.
we had a really nice éventail of sours where like we could like have different fruits and have fun a bit with sours. We really loved our sour like to start off with, and that's the reason why we wanted to get some of those out for the summer. There's like we've got like the sour cassis framboise, which is like I really love it, and inspiration from it came like from du ciel. There's a Cis d'été, which is like
Really?
I've always liked that one and was always like in my big like summer beers. I rarely buy twice the same beer. I'm more of like
Hmm.
the curious kind, but that one like I always had a 4-pack in the fridge just to like people coming over, they'll love it. Like it's a really nice and easygoing beer,
It's
and we
beautiful. The
wanted to get something
color is
similar and like that. Yeah, scarlet
so
red.
beautiful.
I love it.
Unbelievable. How often do you think breweries do that, where they're directly inspired from another brewery or another brew that they've discovered and they go and they try to make
I
their
think
version of it?
I think more often than not, people are probably sometimes like shy to say where they got their inspiration or like. But I think it's important to like. I think it's there's a lot of competition in the brewery, but I think there's a lot of helping also going on. Our neighbor is Ruisseau Noir, and like if we're missing something, like they've got our back, and if they're missing something, we've got their back. Like that's the kind of I think chemistry like I like to get.
It translates just so well into the world of music because we are definitely inspired by other bands all the
Yeah,
time. And then we want to one up them or we want to take that little element and make it our own. And it's the same thing as in the helping hand. My friends right here, and this is a perfect example, Panzerfaust. We were on tour in Canada together. They had a horrible accident in the Rocky Mountains crossing over into Calgary. And luckily they were all fine, but their gear, everything ruined. So the next gig that they made, we all lent them our equipment. It's exactly such a translation between the breweries and the metal, and I love it. And the more that I speak to brewers, the more that I see that there is a correlation between the metal world and the brewery world, and I love it.
Yeah, and actually, like, to see your podcast, like, combining both of them, it's there. Yeah.
And it works, which leads me to my next question. It's Vox and Hops, so I have to ask, do you ever listen to metal? Have you ever listened to metal? And if you do listen to metal, what bands do you listen to?
Yes, and a lot of bands. Actually, like, I listened to your podcast with Dimi Borgir. Like,
Oh, very
Jesus,
cool.
like, I'm getting to get on a show where, like, they're on, like, Jesus, like, I'm actually really happy with it. Like, I actually got my nose broken on one of their songs, which is like, I actually really love metal music, and I've always been into it. I'd say, like, some of the bands that I've really liked was like Dimi Borgir. I started listening to, I'd say, like, my first bands that were Trivium, Dimi Borgir, and like Hammerfall were like three of my big pillars at the start. And then, like, you start learning about metal music, and then you just go in all those branches, like. And Necrogoblican is another one I really love. There's Polka Dot Cadaver also, which is like,
Oh yeah.
I learned about them, like, seeing Corplicani in Quebec City, and I got to know that band, and I think it was one of the best show I've seen, since, like, the guys knew how to perform, and, like, the energy they drove was insane. And, like, Polka Dot Cadaver, like, hats off, like, really
Absolutely.
good band.
Very
And
cool.
also, like, in 2020, like, they remastered one of their old albums. Like, 2020 isn't good, but I've got this. I won't complain.
There's some good things in 2020,
Yeah.
but and we have to grasp onto those and just move forward and strive for a better 2021.
Yeah.
But we have to appreciate the things that we did like. How about when you guys are brewing? What is your brewer playlist? Is there some metal on that? How
I'd
do
say-
the other brewers accept your metal passion?
I'd say I'm mostly the only one that listens to metal. So, like, on my weekend brews, I like to go to come in and, like, have a nice and alone brew where I put whatever I put in. If I'd say this weekend I put on an Opeth, which is like Sorceress is like such a good album. And I think it's the kind of album you need to listen from A to Z, and you can just, like, pinpoint a song and, like, actually just listen to that one. So that's what I like about brewing, where, like, just doing your things, and, like, sometimes, like, the music kind of goes along with what you do. Like, I love it. Opeth actually, like, is one of the bands I put on most of the time, since, like, I've got time to listen to the entire album, or, like, sometime on the car ride, like, I won't have time to listen to the entire one, so, like, I'll just, like, put in some random songs. Or else, like, I know, like, the guys like to listen to funk, and, like, we've got like a lot of things playing on the brewery, and, like, sometimes they come in and they've, like, their Spotify playlist is, like, crowded with, like, Zelda OSTs, and, like, yeah, that's, like, I go from, like, one to the other, but I like to get some ambient music, because most of the time you're, like, really focused on something. Just want something in the background, like, actually to
That's awesome. I love it. And Opeth rules. Absolutely.
Yeah, they do. They actually really do.
Love Opeth.
Yeah.
If you could, I'm not sure, has Saint-Houblon done any collaborative brews yet?
No, not yet. Well, we
Talk me
got,
through
like,
that.
for the restaurants, but not yet in cans.
So Ruisseau Noir seems to be the one that would make the most sense to me, since you guys are so close. But if you could, and if you could do a collaborative brew with any brewer out there, who would be that dream collab team for you?
That's a hard one. Usually you ask for metal bands, but I'd say for another brewery, it's hard to say. Like, I've always respected Dieu du Ciel. I think they're a pillar of our industry. Like, and I think it could be, like, a really great honor, like, as the podcast is, like, to be invited here. But I think Duracell would be like really, really a nice. I know it's not like the most hipster thing to say, like it's not like the niche ones, but they're actually the ones with like a lot of expertise. And I think to learn from them, like they're actually like they've got the big guns, like they've got the.
They crafted the way. You know, there's a few pinnacle craft beer breweries out there that have crafted the way for Quebec beer. And I have been citing the wrong person as the first person for many, many episodes. I'm going to correct that now, and I'm going to correct it again when I get him on the podcast, which I'm striving to do. Cheval Blanc was the first. I've been saying Unibrew for a long time on the podcast. I was wrong. Cheval Blanc is a pioneer. Dieu du Ciel, absolutely. Unibrew, of course. But Dieu du Ciel is amazing, and I still think they're amazing. And, you know, when La Moralité is basically a collab brew with The Alchemist, you know,
I'm from Joliet, so it goes with it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now to the classic question. If you could do a collab with a band, what band would that be? And what would you call it? And what style would it be?
Since I really like Polka Dot Cadaver, it's less on the ethical side, but they've got a song called Last Call in Jonestown, and I always thought that like getting like a really hard like beer, 10 and up % called Last Call in Jonestown could be really, really good. Or like
Very
something more on Sacrilegious Stout from Demi Borgir, or like, yeah, like.
I love it.
There's so much.
I love it. Shawn-Kevin, it probably never happens to you because you're very in control and you know what's going on. One last question for you. What is your hangover cure?
I used to get some Jager bombs as a like Red Bull, but like getting into a drink, so you put like some Jager in it and just like put your entire Red Bull in it. I don't think I can do it anymore. Like and right now, I'd say like a glass of water for every beer you drink really, really helps. But we always forget. We always like we all know it. Like the glass of water, it's like really famous, but no one does it.
I try.
Yeah. I also try. Like my two first ones are like really good, but like then you forget the other ones, and you're getting into shots, and then you're elsewhere.
Shawn-Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me, share a brew, have a chat, talking about your life, music, and brewing amazing craft beers. I truly, truly appreciated it. And I want everybody out there to please go support Saint-Houblon. They make some amazing brews, and I'm excited to see what their second year canning brews brings the Quebec craft beer market. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers, mate.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. What an excellent chat with Shawn-Kevin. I love hanging out with metal brewers. As you all know, I consider brewers my rock stars. I have the chance of hanging out with musicians all the time, and I hang out with a bunch of them. I've toured with a bunch of amazing people, so I rarely become starstruck, but when I hang out with a brewer of a brewery that I actually buy and enjoy, I get that same feeling that I used to get when I started touring. So I love Saint-Houblon. I have for a very long time, and Shawn-Kevin is very, very cool, and it's super cool that he's a metalhead. I love that very much, and I love this conversation, and I'm super stoked to see what Saint-Houblon comes up with in 2021. If you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should most definitely subscribe to it on the podcast platform of your choice, but not only that, you should take the time to rate it and write a review, because if you do that, more people just like yourself will be able to discover the Vox and Hops podcast. Vox and Hops is brought to you by Sound Talent Media. I will be back next week with 2 episodes, but until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.